subject matter experts and practitioners to lead these learning labs. And the way they're structured is offering you 10 to 15 minutes of content overview with the remaining portion for really in-depth Q&A, just to make sure that you all can get the more specific answers that you need. So yes, we plan on holding them every Wednesday morning, 10 to 11, and we're happy to hear your thoughts on future topics of interest. So in a bit, I'm going to put Andrea and my email in the chat box, and you can go ahead and email us any requests or ideas you might have for future ones. We don't have time, unfortunately, today to allow everyone to introduce themselves, so we'd really appreciate everyone updating your name and icon to include your business as well, just so we know who you are and who you're representing. And then you might have noticed, but we will be recording the session today for members who were unable to join us, and just to make sure that we'll be sending the link out to you as well in case you'd like to review it for the future, in the future. And then, so we're going to start off today with Jen from Sendle. Hi, Jen. Thanks for joining us today. She's going to be offering us an overview of best practices and kind of quick and easy things that businesses can adopt now. And then we're going to move on to Q&A, and we'll also be addressing questions that were submitted prior to the event. Just a couple other housekeeping items. Unless you're speaking, try to keep your microphone muted. And then if you have any questions, again, just submit them through the chat box and we'll get to them at the Q&A session, or you can raise your hand with the little button you'll see in the right side of your screen. And I think that is it. And we'll also be following up with notes and links and contact info. So again, don't feel stressed if you don't catch everything today, and then everything is recorded as well. So all of that is done. For those of us who just joined, we just ask that everyone update their name and business so we know who everyone is and who you all are representing. Thank you much. And then Jen, I'll hand it over to you now.
Thank you, Nico. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me today. I'm excited to be here. So like Nico said, I'm going to do kind of 10-15 minutes of just a brief overview, and then really just want to be able to help answer any questions that you have. I'm currently the community manager for Sendle, which is a carbon neutral shipping service that was founded in Australia and is now in the US. And so our US team is based in Seattle. And we are a sustaining member of Seattle Good Business Network. And I participated in a few of the learning labs already and have really learned a lot and just kind of appreciate the community. Prior to my role with Sendle, I have kind of worked in like big box retail and for small e-commerce companies. When I was approached by Sendle for my role, the recruiter was like, hey, I have this carbon neutral shipping service that's looking for a community manager. And I was like, what are you talking about? And so I went to Sendle's website, and they talked a little bit about the work that they do and sort of pain points that small businesses face when they're looking at shipping. And I sort of felt all of those. So here in Seattle, I worked for Hotcakes for a bit, managing wholesale. So I've worked with distributors, I've worked with warehousing, I've done 3PL stuff, and then also just worked for like small e-commerce businesses who don't have a brick and mortar, who really were just trying to figure out like, what's the best way to get my product to folks. And so I think one of the things that I want to kind of be really mindful about is sort of talking about the customer experience. And I think that there's this like misunderstanding or just idea that once a customer hits purchase, that sort of that's it, right? Like, fantastic. They went to your website, they liked what you have, your product is great, they felt like implored to buy, that's awesome. They hit purchase and like their experience is done. And that's not accurate, right? Like, the customer experience doesn't end until they receive their product. And ideally, like, they receive their product on time and there's no issues, and, you know, all of these things that are important to us, particularly now when we're getting so much more online than we were before. And so what does that mean? Like, that means that you need to be kind of communicating your your policies and your preferences and really your bandwidth to your customers before they even go through that process. And so I think a lot of us spend a lot of time kind of going through and like, what's the best shipping service for me? What's going to make the most sense? What's like really helping me streamline my, all of these things. Especially when we're looking like at our e-commerce site. So likely you went through and you were like, do I want to use WooCommerce or Shopify or, eBay or Etsy or, whatever. And you did all this research and you landed on a thing. And then sometimes with shipping, we're just like, okay. And really you should be putting like as much research and time into shipping your product as you are kind of curating your store and picking your partners for suppliers and making your website pretty, because that's like the final, literally like the final mile of your product, right? So I loved some of the questions that came in already. I don't want to like take up too much time just sort of talking about things. I'd love to kind of hear more about what you all specifically are interested in and how I can help. And then chat a little bit about best practices and kind of tips and tricks for being able to kind of accurately explain to your customers where you are so that when they purchase, which is amazing, they kind of know what's going on and what to expect and when it's coming and when it's shipping, so that then they leave you a fantastic review and they feel like they want to come back as a returning customer because their entire experience was amazing and seamless and wonderful. And really that starts with, it starts with going to your website and then it ends with getting the product. So that's kind of my spiel to begin with. But if there are questions, I just want to kind of open it up. And if not, I think Nico had some that everybody sent in to begin with. So please don't be shy. I am here to help, hopefully. And if I cannot, I will most definitely kind of help point you in the right direction or help find some resources for you so that someone or the internet can help in some way.
I can start us off on one of the questions we received. Barbara, I think you are here today. Thanks for joining us and submitting your question. If you'd like to offer any clarity or more detail around what you were hoping to find out, would love for you to chime in. But Barbara was interested in eco-conscious packaging and the experience with return customers. Barbara, not sure if you'd like to expand on that in any way, if you had like a specific type of packaging that you were curious about or ways to engage in returning customers. Jen, Sendle just released their newly compostable mailers, which is super exciting. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything around that you can give.
Yeah, for sure. Barbara, I can just start chatting, and then if you feel like I'm not addressing your question, please feel free to chime in. For eco-conscious packaging, I think that you sort of need to decide where your heart is, what makes the most sense for you, kind of what your bandwidth is. And so there's a lot of great eco packaging out there right now, whether it's compostable mailers like Sendle has. There are some other great brands that are making things. Better Packaging is one of the companies that does kind of compostable mailers. Are you looking for compostable things? Are you looking for recyclable materials? Are you hoping to reuse packaging? All of those I think are great options. What I think is really important is sort of telling your customer what you do. And so if you're using recycled boxes, for instance, I think it's important to make a note of that on your like shipping policies or here, just double checking this. New boxes. Okay, cool. Sorry, I'm just double checking Barbara's comment that she left here. Okay, so yeah, I think this idea of like sending a new box each time. So if you're going to be recycling boxes or if you're going to be using recycled packaging, then just let your customers know that. And so I think being able to say like, hey, I'm reusing boxes because it's important to me to make sure that there's not extra waste going out. Like, just keep this in mind when you receive your package. And I think that that's really just like setting expectations so that they understand what they're receiving is going to go a long way. And likely a lot of your customers kind of feel the same way you do feel about either the environment or, you know, packaging or sort of e-commerce in general. And so like, that's why they're at your site, because they've been drawn to something that you've said about all of these things. So being able to kind of give folks that reassurance to begin with is going to be really great. I don't think that takes away from expensive jewelry at all, especially if you're communicating that to your customers. And so I guess like also, what does it look like when they're opening it up, right? Like, are you packaging in tissue paper? Are you packaging in newspaper? Are you sort of like, what does that unboxing experience look like is kind of what we're talking about. I think something that I found really helpful is talking to other jewelers, talking to other small businesses. So what are your colleagues doing? What are people doing that sell things that are similar to you? And if everyone's like, oh, I absolutely have to use a new box every time, like I want to make sure that everything looks pristine each time, like that's totally fine. That's okay. That's their, you know, that's their business model. But I think communicating that to your customers and then checking in to see what other folks are doing and then sort of landing on a place that you feel most comfortable with. So maybe for you, it's like, hey, I want to use these recycled boxes, but I'm going to invest in tissue paper so that when somebody opens it, it is, you know, packaged beautifully. And then for labels on mailers, unfortunately, like mailers, labels are not sort of in the same place yet as compostable packaging is. And so stickers are still quite difficult to find that are compostable that work really well. There's options out there. There's some like biostone labels. There's like recycled paper. I think, again, that goes back to sort of letting your customers know, like, hey, I'm using a compostable mailer. The label is not compostable, so please make sure you take it off and put that in the recycling bin or, you know, in the trash, and then go from there. I hope that answers your question, but let me know if I can clarify anything.
Yeah, Jen, one of the, just kind of rolling off of that last comment, a lot of our members, they're super keen on, you know, adopting sustainable packaging, but a lot of them ship nationally, if not internationally, where the recycling ordinances and trash, you know, how you sort your trash is so different. And oftentimes, you know, having compost and recycling all mixed in, even if it all goes to landfill, can be quite detrimental. And so a lot of the advice that I end up giving is, you know, just try to be as universal as possible when, you know, considering what type of packaging you're using. Is there a better solution for that you might have?
It's so hard, right? I mean, yeah. But we just learned last year that like 40% of the plastic that we thought we recycled here was not recycled or something, or after the last like 40 years. I don't know. It was a staggering statistic that made me really sad. And so I don't know. I mean, I think that you have to, like, again, you find sort of your home base. Like, what is the thing that you're most comfortable with? What is it that you want to impart on your customers when it comes to your product and your process and all of these things? And then you kind of do what you can to like be the best that you can in what, you know, you're passionate about or what makes, you know, what you feel is really important to you. So I think you can give everyone all the information like, hey, this packaging is, you know, compostable, or this box is recyclable. And so if you live somewhere where you can recycle, it can go in the recycling bin, you know, whatever. Or I've seen some places go like farther, like, oh, this takes X number of years to, you know, like disintegrate if you put it in the trash or whatever. I hope that we're all trying to be kind of better, you know, citizens for the world, and that we're kind of keeping these things top of mind. But the reality is that, you know, packaging is still trash. And so kind of how are you using that trash or reusing it, or kind of just being mindful.
One question that just came up, in the chat box, would you suggest anything different now in the times of COVID as to perceptions of safety for the customer, specifically with all of the questions concerning how many hours does the virus, stay active on blank surfaces, even if the business is cleaning and disinfecting, etc., on a regular basis. Just with customers seem to be worried and sending messages. So
yeah, definitely. I think I would encourage all of you, if you don't have already, if you haven't already put something on your site about kind of COVID and sort of the steps that you're taking to address or help alleviate customers' concerns, then that's probably a good idea. I got a really wonderful email from a brand out of LA right when everything started about kind of next steps that they were taking. And I'll share that with you all in the notes that I send to Nico. But I think just letting people know what you're doing. Again, like, hey, we're, cleaning, we're disinfecting, we're doing all of these things. I think that there was, somebody looks like they just popped in a link about updated CDC guidelines or updated information. I think last I heard was that the virus does not survive long on cardboard or like boxes and things like that. But I don't know that that's just think about like when you're receiving a package, what are you doing to kind of help keep yourself safe, or what are you doing so that you feel like you're taking, the necessary precautions. And so really, I think it just starts with telling people what you're doing beforehand. So we're disinfecting, we're making sure that we're packaging things with gloves. To begin with, I got a lot of emails from people saying like, hey, our shipping timelines are going to be a little different because we're staggering staff in the shop. So we're only fulfilling on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And it might take us a little bit longer because it's only one person at a time, so that we're kind of having less touch points. Does that help answer the question?
Hey, Jen, this is Willie. I'm with UPS, so I guess who better to kind of speak towards that. So,
yeah, please.
So I work in the marketing and the startup strategy side of things, and good partner, hopefully a good partner to see how the goods network. But so a lot of great conversations being had here as far as questions from the sustainability side to safety. I mean, number one thing for UPS is safety, right? Safety of our people, safety of our customers, and addressing the last question when it comes to the safety and the virus living on the parcel. Yeah, 100% agree with you, Jen, as far as telling the story, being transparent. UPS is, we're a huge company that's out there. We do have a lot of communication that's out there that talks about that, right? We're mindful if we feel like there's products, packages that are not safe, not only for us, but for our customer, we're going to take those off and we're not going to deliver it, and we're going to make the necessary, actions to ensure that. But you're right. It's one, tell the story right up front with who you are, what's your brand, what are you doing, how are you doing it, and why you should trust us, right? So I always say it's the truth, trust, and transparency when it comes to your transportation. So anytime you're doing that, whether it's your story about, your sustainability efforts or just safety of your parcel during COVID, I think that's the biggest thing. But UPS and, I kind of can speak to the other carriers as well, but they're doing the best they can. But of course, with what CDC is saying and how they're working through it and giving you the best information, as we all know, the only, constant is change. So always keep that in mind. And if you need to update it and communicate it with your customers, that would be the best thing. So, so I'll turn it back to you, but I just wanted to share. And yeah, anything that pertains to shipping and the parcels and whatnot, definitely, I think, Jen, you and I can kind of probably tag team on this as well.
Yeah, I would love to. That sounds great. Are there other questions that popped in?
Yes, just one about whether I'm assuming Sendle provides data on impact of shipping versus with other shipping providers.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
This is in regard to your carbon offsetting?
Yeah, so Sendle is 100% carbon neutral, like I mentioned in the beginning, which means that we offset kind of every package that we send. we partner with different carriers kind of around the country. For US customers, we only have domestic service at this time. There are other packaging companies. I think UPS does offer like carbon neutral shipping as well. The thing that's nice about Sendle is it's tied into kind of everything that you are paying already. So we offer flat rates for local and national shipments. And then all of the offsets are in collaboration with the South Pole Group through various projects that are kind of funded across the world.
Thank you, Jen.
Mm-hmm.
No one else has any other questions right now. There are a couple others that we have lined up.
Yeah.
And Nico, if I can definitely jump in as far as any studies and research and whatnot. Sure. And I know Jen and Sendle, you guys are doing a tremendous job on your end. And as far as studies, when it comes to different carriers and whatnot, I mean, we do have a sustainability team and effort that is at corporate, which is in Atlanta. And UPS is heavily focusing on sustainability. We actually hired earlier this year a vice president of sustainability. So we are definitely moving towards that direction, working with Amazon on their efforts as well as far as communication. And though it's a newer thing with sustainability and carbon neutral, it's been around with UPS for a while, but I think it's just a matter of how do you tell the story? What does that really mean? Good data, bad data? What are you going to do with it, right? And I was talking, I have a bi-weekly call with one of our sustainability team members, and he too was saying, what's all this data mean and why is it relevant to our clients, right? We can give you like, oh yeah, it's doing X, Y, and Z, but is it going to lead to action? Is it clear, condensed, concise, compelling, leading you to action? If it doesn't, you might be wasting your time, your effort, your energy, right? So those are some of the things, and I would imagine, Jen, you and the team over there, that's where you come in. This is where you tell the story of why this, why now, why you during COVID. And I was working with a startup company, local, and they're looking at doing reusable takeout containers, right? And I did ask, I said, with COVID being, taking place, cleanliness is of course, top of mind. And said, how do you think they're going to be afterward? Like right now, nobody's going out to eat. Yeah, there's takeouts, but you're not really doing the recycling besides at home. But so they have a play in that. But again, this might be the great time as you read articles, see news and conversation about sustainability, how the environment's being impacted, for the better or for the worse on certain aspects. But this is where the education piece comes in. This is the time to understand what is it doing, what are you doing, and how is it really going to impact not only your business, but your customers and the environment ultimately, right? So for sure, ask a lot of questions. It's still so new, a lot of dialogue, a lot more to gain. But again, if you don't know what the data really represents, you don't know where you're going to go with solution. So,
yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Willie. There's a question that just popped up, or a couple, wondering if there are options that don't use packaging at all. Amy is suffering from eco-guilt because her package is
aren't we all?
Yes, it's options that don't use packaging.
Amy, can you tell me a little bit more about what you mean by like don't use packaging? Are you hoping to find something kind of sustainable, or do you just mean like what are some ways that you can ship that like would I guess like are you hoping like wrapping in paper, or do you need to have like bubble wrap and so that's contributing? Kind of what's the or do you just mean the girth, like the size of the package?
Well, I'm keeping myself open to possibilities here. Right now, okay. I purchase packaging from a company down in Kent, and it's a 6-foot long box so that I could ship my furniture product.
Okay.
And it just, it seems like a step that would be lovely to eliminate. I mean, it's an expense, and then the customer, when they receive it at their home, literally they take my product out of the package and they, you know, compress it down and throw it in their bin. So
yeah,
what if there were options that didn't necessitate that altogether? Like, what if it could be wrapped in a furniture blanket and delivered and put on, you know, received without any box?
Yeah. Have you looked at like freight options? Because I know there are some like vintage furniture companies that move product only like via freight. And so they don't send them in boxes, but
it's
they
really
like,
expensive.
Yeah. Okay. There's also the option of, if you have to do it in your box, of looking at like carbon offsets. So there's a group here in Seattle called NORI that does carbon offsets through regenerative agriculture. And so basically like instead of just purchasing the offsets that are going to projects, they're specifically focused on regenerative ag. So like putting things back into the earth that will grow. It's a really cool project.
NORI?
NORI. I'll send Nico the link too. And like I said, they're based out of Seattle. They're in Ballard. And they've got a really cool podcast too, kind of talking about sort of their work and what they're doing. But I wonder if that might be an alternative, right? So like, I have to ship my product in these boxes. This is the most like economical option that I have. You could also give people the option to ship via freight and say like, if you want this option, so like if you want to pay more, this is something that I can do. I think sometimes giving customers the option to kind of opt into things like that maybe makes a surprise that people are willing to pay more in order to kind of offset their footprint. So being able to kind of give them those options is something there too. But I would say, yeah, look into something like NORI that might be helpful.
Well, the other thought that occurred to me is maybe that I haven't thought through possibilities of doing like what Amazon does with these pickup locations. Like maybe there is some other, you know, pickup location for consumers to use. You know, Shopify has this option where you can have a free pickup. But then
I love that now.
I don't want to put in my personal home address.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
Are most of your customers local in Seattle?
Mm-hmm.
No. Okay. Because yeah, that's another option. It's just kind of giving people the option to do pickup, or like collaborating with another like small business that you know and saying like, hey, if I moved everything here on Tuesdays, could people come and pick up, or you know, something like that. But
people
I'm happy to. Yeah.
And again,
I'm happy to chat with you more, just kind of about options and sort of look into kind of larger eco-friendly shipping options, and we can kind of continue the discussion if that would be helpful.
Yeah, and there's I mean, again, we're in this pandemic. This is when people start to think of different ways of doing things, right? So just because it's not being done right now doesn't mean you can't be that company that does it, type thing, testing it out. And I know that, again, unless you're a nonprofit, right, you are a for-profit company, you almost have to, you will need to be mindful of expense, right? You mentioned freight costs, you mentioned packaging costs. There's going to be costs to doing business. It's just a matter of where do you spend that money, where do you spend the time, and is it needed? If you go down this rabbit hole of, I think this is what customers need, but you don't maybe understand the totality of it, then maybe you're not doing it for the right reasons. Therefore, business might not be sustainable in two fronts, right? Being in business and being relevant in the sense of, is this the right thing to do? So yeah, there's freight. There's ways that you can do white glove service where somebody goes out there, depending on your product and your business, they go out there, they set it up, they take away the materials, right? And then they dispose of it. Communicate that on your website. You know, that's something that somebody's willing to pay for, and depending on your business and depending on your product, that could be an option. But and from the carrier side, if it's not in a box, you will incur additional fees, right? So then that's the flip side. So there's always that, and this is where I think at the very beginning, if you are a CPG, consumer good, hardware, anything that needs logistics and shipping, that definitely needs to be in your business model early on, because it's going to impact your costs to move from point A to point B, whether it's domestic or international. And the longer the distance, the more costly, and the bigger the box, the more costly, right? So if you can minimize that ahead of time, saying, well, if I would have known ahead, I would have made it a little bit smaller. I would have made it this way versus that way. Now that I have 100 of these, 1,000 of these, whatever the case is, you've got to move that along, and then you're going to eat that, right? So think through that early on. Get with someone like Jen, myself, or any other partners out there to have that dialogue, right? It's always an afterthought when it comes to shipping, because it's not your product, it's not your business. And in the sense of, that's why you have the partnerships around, and that's why you come to these events, meet with different people, and then you realize that, I don't have to be the expert in this. I know what my business is. I know where I want it to be. I just need the partners to kind of help me get to that in a very cost-effective and efficient manner, to achieve my goals. And I think that's why we're all here, is to collaborate. And that's why, organizations such as Seattle Goods Network is here to be a part of that. So.
Thanks, Willie. Yeah, definitely putting forethought from the outset is super important. Adam, I don't want to put you on the spot, but with Argents, I was wondering if you might have any additional insight to add to freight or other.
Yes, for sure. And I also had a question too for Jen. First, I'll introduce myself. I'm Adam Sneed. I'm with Argents Express. We're a freight forwarding company, customs broker. We also offer fulfillment e-commerce services. I'm based here in Seattle, our Kent facility, about 50,000 square feet of fulfillment space. And we also have a warehouse in Chicago and Charleston, South Carolina. One question, and we're always looking for ways to become more green. And one thing we've done in the past is try to offer more of an eco-friendly packaging to our fulfillment customers. And in general, or last time I ran the numbers, the products are more expensive. So when we offer, well, here's what you're going to pay per box at a level of 2,000 orders a week or a month or whatever it is, and that's not really fitting into their budget, because for a lot of these fulfillment accounts, shipping really is the last question. They're not thinking about it early enough in the business model. It's sort of, they figure out everything else and then say, okay, and then so you guys can take care of getting it to the end user, right? And like, well, yeah, we can, but that's a whole other discussion of how fast do you want to do it? How much do you want to spend on packaging? So I think it's a great conversation to have. A question for you, Jen, would be, do you guys partner with freight forwarding companies? Is it something that we might be able to possibly integrate with you guys to offer, if a customer would like to send the package as a carbon neutral, you can send it on sort of this option. We have a rate shop function that we offer to our customers that sort of runs all of the different pricing options and carrier options, and so sort of picks the best one. But is this something we could add on to the platform to be, or you can use Sendle and send it for this cost and it's carbon neutral?
I love this question. I was just chatting with Andrea and Nico about this before we started, and I was like, I need to talk to some 3PLs in the area, because we do have customers who kind of ask for 3PL recommendations. And so what I think I'll do is, if you don't mind, if you and I kind of chat afterwards and I can connect you with the right folks on my team. We don't move freight right now. We specifically move packages for small and medium-sized businesses. We do have larger customers, but the bulk of our customers are small, medium-sized businesses. So when you look at the Sendle breakdown of packages, there's different rates you can get if you send, you're a personal sender, or you fall into our premium category, so you send about 20 packages a month, or you fall into our pro category, so about 200 packages a month. And so, but we use a 3PL for our compostable mailers. I think you're absolutely right too. Eco-friendly compostable packaging is not cheap right now, right? So our compostable mailers are available right now for $40 for 100. Most places are priced at about $45 for 100. But when you look at the cost of getting a poly mailer that's the same size, it's a pretty large difference, right? And so you really are kind of making concessions when you're saying this is something that I absolutely want to use for my business. And this is how much it's going to cost me. And so where am I then needing to make changes, or do I need to raise my prices? There were some questions that came in about kind of the difference of offering free shipping versus charging for shipping, or should you charge a flat rate, things like that. So I think that there are things you can do to kind of make that a cornerstone of your business and what you want to be doing. But yeah, I would love to chat. Let's kind of get
Yeah,
connected.
definitely.
Chat more about how to be able to offer that for customers who are working with you guys who are looking for carbon neutral shipping.
Gotcha. And then just Amy, I wanted to touch base on your question really quick. I know you already answered that most of your, or some of your customers are not local here to Seattle, but there are one product that we offer in Chicago and here in Seattle. We're trying to launch more of the program here is sort of a white glove service, if you will. So we do a good bit of that in Chicago where we're picking up from the manufacturers and delivering to their buyers without packaging. So it's sort of, you're not getting lost in the wheels of, I mentioned like a UPS or FedEx, not to say that that's bad, but it goes into this massive system. With someone like us, we're sending the driver in, you're seeing the same driver pretty much every day, and they're friendly, they're going to deliver to the door or inside to wherever the furniture would need to be placed. So there are non-packaging options. We even do that all over the country where we don't have facility, but obviously the cost goes up and we have to arrange white glove delivery service to to a residential address. That's just another surcharge on top of everything generally in the trucking world. So I think there are options, but it sounds like it would be difficult to have an overall model for your business in every market and be able to offer that product in every market. In some places locally in Seattle, I think, yes, you can find an affordable solution from us or from some local courier companies that can do non-packaged delivery, but it will be up to the customer essentially to pass through cost. And then do they want to pay for that level of service? Is it worth it to them to not have the packaging, but they're doing a good thing and supporting local business, and it gets delivered to their door with no packaging and they don't have to worry about disposal either. So there are some other benefits, but in general, yes, it's a higher cost for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jen, one of the other questions that came up, are consumers more likely to purchase products if the shipping costs are rolled into the product price and they offer free shipping?
So I love these questions, and I think that they're really important. I would encourage all of us to kind of look to our own spending habits. So when you're going to someone's website, if you see the cost for shipping, does that deter you from purchasing, or does that make you say, no big deal, I want to buy this anyways? I like having options. And so when I go to different websites, if I can see like, if I buy over $75, I know that shipping is going to be free. If I want it in 2 to 3 business days, it's going to cost me this. Or if I want it to go the slowest option, it's going to cost me this. I love shopping online. I'm an avid e-commerce shopper. And so for me, seeing something that says like, spend $75 and get free shipping, I'm like, yes, I will spend $75. I will add something else to my cart. A lot of it is like mental, right? It's these like games that we play with ourselves to like justify purchases and things like that. So the other thing I would encourage you all to do is maybe do like a focus group with some of your customers. And so you know your product best, you know your customers best. And so ask some people if they're interested in coming to chat with you for, like to get some more insight about things. Ask some of your returning customers, or, some of the folks who, refer customers to you, and just say like, talk to me about shipping. Like as consumers, we have a lot of thoughts on shipping now, right? Like, what's the expectation? Do we think that things need to come quicker? Do we think that things need to be cheaper? And you might get some differing opinions, but at the end of the day, I think actually hearing from your people is going to be really, really helpful. So if someone says to you, I worked at a company where we did like free shipping over $35 and a onesie's $35. So if you buy a onesie, you get free shipping. And that tended to work really, really well. There was a comment in the Shopify learning lab that was like 2 or 3 weeks ago about kind of not offering sort of coupon codes as the first incentive for getting people to your shop. And I absolutely agree about that, right? You don't want to like discount or devalue your product to sort of get someone in the door. But it's like one of the first things we think about, right? Like get 10% off or get 15% off or get 20% off. And so I would really encourage you to look at your products and look at what you have and sort of think about that. I think the one thing I would definitely discourage is, I was looking at a site the other day and I wanted to buy bulk candy, and the candy was like $7.50 for a pound or something, and the shipping was going to cost me $7.99, and I was like, outraged. I can't even believe, like, I will not spend more on the shipping than I will spend on the product. And I'm saying this as someone who works for, you know, a shipping company. And so, you know, like, I do these things with myself. And so think about like your retargeting ads, think about, you know, the information that's going out in your newsletters, think about all of the information that you're giving your customers, and then kind of be upfront about that. I think that for some folks, if it's like, hey, we, you know, can offer X for, you know, this, or we can offer these different options for different products, like all of that can be communicated to people. But I would say, A, take a look at yourself and what your priorities are when you're shopping online. And then B, talk to your customers. And then C, talk to your colleagues, talk to people who are doing similar things. I sold vintage on Etsy for a long time. And for me, it was like a flat rate. Hey, shipping's going to cost you $5.99. And if it costs me less than that, then I will refund it. And if it costs you more than that, then I've eaten the cost. And for me, that was my own sanity of saying, like, I can't think about, you know, all of these things more than that. But you have options. And I think you just need to think about your priorities and what your customers are looking for, and then communicate that.
And just to add on to that, I've seen an interesting shift during this pandemic of, you know, Amazon pretty much trained the world to expect free shipping, and you're going to get it in 1, if not 2 days now. Now the perception has changed to where, rightfully so, that there's a lot of products that, you know, are not taking priority over personal protection equipment and these kind of things. So now the whole mentality of people buying stuff on Amazon, at least for me and people I've talked to, they're not expecting it in 1 or 2 days anymore. Mm-hmm. You know, they're buying it with, they're saying expect delays of 1 to 2 weeks or whatever it is. And I've generally gotten the package before what they're telling me. So I'm getting a slower shipping service, but my mind is telling me I'm getting something better than what they told me I was going to get. So I think it's a good time, especially for small and medium businesses, to sort of evaluate this, even if they've done this 6 months ago, a year ago. But people's perceptions change and their expectations change based on, you know, the current climate of what's going on geopolitically and various other reasons. But right now, I think is a whole different ballgame when shipping's concerned as it was, you know, 6 months ago. So definitely a good thing to analyze right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'll add to that as well. I mean, this is, again, great dialogue as far as, you know, customers and what's happening out in the world, the community. But, you know, just kind of bringing it to the micro, right? It's always about consumers. If we look at what, just like Jen said, you are a consumer. I think there was a message that says, yeah, we as consumers, we're all consumers, right? We know what we want. So if we're a part of that, we're part of the statistics, right? We can say, this is what we want. So if you're not giving yourself what you want, then are you giving your customers what they need, type thing? So always play that in your mind. Your you know, your instincts are always going to probably outweigh what some things are being said out there. So keep that in mind. But it's always, you know, for end consumers, it's about the choice, convenience, and control. Those are the 3 things. And then communication right now. Communication is going to be instrumental in how you talk about it, just like what Adam was saying with Amazon, right? It's setting the expectations. Always undercommit and over-deliver, right? That's what you want to do. You don't want to do the opposite of over-committing and underperforming. So always keep that in mind. You're a consumer. Think through it, and you'll more times than not, you'll make the right choices. Maybe a little tweak here and there, and as you move along, you're going to have to always tweak, even though it is, you know, like Adam said again, 6 months. Hey, I just did this. Well, yeah. So, you know, life was different 3 months ago, 6 months ago, right? So if you're not evolving, you're going to be left behind. And as a business owner, you're always going to have to be one step ahead of the game. And, you know, maybe it's not just you, maybe it's your team, it's your colleague, it's the community. So use that as your signal. Use that as the you know, where should I be going? And do the best you can with the resources you have. And if you don't have the resources, go out there. There's plenty of people that's willing to help and give you some information and guidance. But definitely a lot of good stuff to talk about. And one thing before I kind of stay quiet here, but the returns aspect, right? I think that was one thing that coming to this, I thought, oh, okay, let's talk about returns, because 75, 80% and probably higher, they look at the returns on your website. They go to how easy are the returns? Is it free? Is it expensive? That's what they're going to look at, not on the front door. They go to behind the back door and say, okay, how does this work? How does this look? How does this feel? If I buy this, is it easy for me to return? If it doesn't fit, if it's not the right color. If you're making it difficult, you can bet that they're going to leave and they're not going to come back, because your return process is not to their liking. It's not to what they're looking for. They want their control. They want to be able to say, you got an easy return process, you have free shipping, and everything is about them now. You're just the driver of this vehicle, but ultimately the destination is going to be driven by the customer. So.
And if you're a new business, please don't make the mistake of thinking you will never have returns, because that's another big issue we have in fulfillment. No matter how good your product is, you will have returns at some point. So it is important to work through that process and have a plan for it. So that's good advice.
Yeah, thank you for the comprehensive background, Jen, Adam, and Willie. That was one of the questions that came up. And Jen, I was wondering if you had anything else to add on to the return policies, how likely customers were to review and, before purchasing, and if you had any suggestions for return policies.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think I agree with Willie. I mean, I think it's something that people definitely look at. I will say that there are a lot of small e-commerce sites that don't accept returns, and I understand that stance. It's expensive and it's timely. And I think that particularly for small businesses that are kind of like self-fulfilling and things like that, it can feel like daunting, sort of that process of getting something back, and then can you resell it? Can you repost it? Is it damaged? Like, all of these things that kind of go through your mind. So I think what I would encourage all of you to do is sort of look at your own bandwidth. Like, can you accept returns? Can you do exchanges? What does it look like if you take them back? The last company that I worked at, our official policy was that we did not process returns, but always somebody would email to say, like, either we did custom printing, so like this was printed incorrectly, or it was the wrong size or something like that. And when we ran our numbers, it made more sense for us to let someone keep the product that they had and to send them a new one at cost to us. And so we would write back and say, like, I'm so sorry about X, and feel free to keep that item that you received that was either printed incorrectly or too small or whatever, and either use it for play clothes or donate, and we'll ship you another one. And that for us was cheaper than having that person send it back to us, particularly if it was a custom item, and not being able to resell it, or having to like waste it, to trash it. And so I think that you sort of think about your bandwidth and what your capability is, and then go from there. And then, even if you say on your website, like, hey, we don't accept returns, somebody's going to email you to say, hey, I have a question about returns. And so you like be true to your brand, and like do the best you can for your customers. I think even if you say like you can't accept returns, like talk it through and have a conversation with them and figure out kind of what you can do to sort of help streamline or make the experience best for them, because that's really how you're gonna like build that trust and that sort of inherent want to come back and be a return customer. Because even if something is, not received to their liking or their expectation or something like that, feeling like somebody cares about your experience through the whole process is going to have them come back and want to support you, because they feel valued and heard as a customer.
And on the return subject, there are some other options as well. We, for example, have some customers where we don't handle their fulfillment. We only handle their returns, because they don't have, whether it's the space, the ability to process it or do the quality checks. But there are companies like us and others that can sort of serve as that function. If you've got everything else covered out of your garage or a small office,
right.
component you don't have figured out as returns, there's ways and solutions for that too. So I'm happy to talk to anyone if there's questions about that and try to provide some guidance. But there are certainly ways to do that instead of just saying we don't take returns. So let me know if there's any other questions about that. I can answer on a more direct level.
Thanks, Adam. Jen, I hate to backtrack, but I forgot to loop back around on a quick clarifying question about your self-pull project.
Oh, yeah.
In relation to your carbon offsetting. Thank you.
Yeah, what
was sorry, just what it was in relation to carbon offsetting.
Oh, definitely. Okay, just like which projects and stuff like that.
Self-pull project, yeah.
Yeah, okay, I'll send a link so that you guys can kind of get more information. But essentially, like, we partner with the self-pull group. We have a project here in the US, or that we are hoping that US customers will be able to vote on. But in Australia, we basically give our customers there the opportunity to vote on which project they want to fund. And then we go through and purchase those offsets and kind of fund those projects. And like I said, everything's done through the self-pull group. Sendle's also a certified B Corporation. And so kind of in tandem with that work, our membership as B Corporations kind of goes towards doing good work in the world and kind of making sure that we're hitting specific milestones and sorry, my brain blanked, but that we're meeting certain requirements so that we can be a B Corporation. But yeah, I'll send the link for like direct information on which projects we've helped fund.
Thanks. Sorry, I know I should have done that earlier for context. I think we have time for one or two really quick questions if anyone wants to jump in. If not, I have one at the ready. Okay, there was one question about price breaks or a break point, more so whether there were break points where consumers will no longer purchase a product because the shipping percentage based on the value of the product is too high.
Yeah, so I think I go back to like the same thing I said earlier about like, please don't price something you're shipping over the price of your product, because that feels offensive as a consumer. But also if you are looking at, I think like Barbara mentioned the jewelry. And so for a lot of customers, I've seen like a breakdown of pricing. And so if it's, you know, a product that's like $0 to like $400, it's this much. If it's $400 to $800, it's this much. If it's over this, it's this much. And sort of building in some of those like insurance and extra tracking and, you know, things like that. I think that it really goes back to like that honesty piece and kind of being able to communicate effectively with your customer. So telling them kind of your policies and your procedures to begin with. For me, other than looking at like a price being more than the product, there's not really anything that's so offensive to me about shipping that like I'm going to be deterred from it. I shop on Amazon. Like I know that my Prime is getting me like free shipping. Which is not exactly free. I've, you know, shopped with places where it's like, you know, if you spend over this amount of money, then shipping is free. It really just depends on the product and the expectation that I have of when and how it's coming to me.
Yeah, and I'll add to that one quickly is as far as your business model and your pricing model, think of it early on, because you can always lower your price. People are okay seeing a lower price versus I want to raise it because I forgot about this, that, and the other. People don't appreciate that, or consumers don't, right? So always keep that in mind early on as far as you know, how you price things and factor in the shipping rates and all your other costs, right? So I think that's early on when you start your business and your business case and creating that model. I think that's early on that you need to kind of do the best you can, but you can always iterate. And again, lower the price is better than being able to increase it.
Sorry, missing all my buttons here. There's one other quick question regarding packaging and social media, but I want to last call for questions as we do. We have a few more minutes. Okay. So yeah, a lot of packaging questions today. It seems to always be like the niche challenge that no one can really get perfect. But do you have any suggestions for creating interesting packaging that will encourage customers to share on social media? And I will quickly note, Eric from Custom Creating, they work on creating specialized packaging. So I'll include his contact info in the follow-up email in case folks would like to reach out to him. But yeah, Jen, if you have some pointers.
I think that, like I said, kind of that unboxing experience, I think is really important right now. I've talked to a lot of customers who have said like that's our customers. So businesses who have said that's kind of top of mind for them right now is being able to provide kind of a beautiful unboxing experience. The last company I worked at, we used recyclable packaging, but we also used colored tissue paper and a sticker, and our packaging had like a really cute saying on it. Those were things that kind of felt true to the values of the brand, because like I said, it's kind of baby clothes that you want to sort of give off that vibe. But I think that I will say, I believe that unboxing is much more popular on YouTube. And I also think that most of your customers are not going to be sharing the unboxing experience on social media. Where you will find that is kind of in the influencer sphere, where they're kind of showing the entire package, which I think is another conversation altogether. And I'm happy to kind of talk about that if you have specific questions. But I would say like, I think that there's value in that. I think it comes from communicating your values effectively and clearly. If you have the bandwidth and the time and the money to put into creating a beautiful unboxing experience and you feel like that's really tantamount to your brand, please do. I think that's amazing. But if, you know, all of those things feel like too much or too expensive or whatever, there are ways to get your products to customers where they're still going to appreciate the experience and the product and all of those things. And I think that while it's nice to have, it's not the reason why somebody's buying something from you. And so you can also like create special hashtags of like, hey, share this when you get it, or, you know, send me photos so that you can have user generated content on your social media. I think that there are a lot of ways to engage with your customers on social media that don't necessarily mean that you have to put a lot of time and money into the unboxing experience. But if you are passionate about that, I'm happy to send you some links for customers or companies I know that are doing kind of beautiful packaging. So let me know. I will include some links when I send stuff to Nico.
Yeah, that'd be great, Jen. Thank you. And with that, we're at time. I don't want to steal any more minutes from you all. Thank you once again, everyone, and especially Adam and Willie for chiming in. It's really great to have such comprehensive coverage of all the questions and challenges that our local businesses are facing. So really, thank you all for your time. I hope you all are able to stay safe and healthy. And again, just look out for that follow-up email. You'll have all the contact info if you have any lasting burning questions or anything at all. And again, if you have any suggestions for future learning labs, please reach out. But otherwise, y'all have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much,
everyone.
Jen.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Andrea, do you save the record? I think you're muted.
Yeah, the recording.
So you stop it and save it. Do I need to?
I'm just 1 second.
Yeah. I can. I just didn't want to mess it up.
I guess. Sorry. So I'll get a link with the video recording and I can send it to you.